Good morning, everybody, and welcome to VG Myths, the online internet video game TV show held together by nothing but shoestring hopes and dreams. In Gun, you go on a Wild West adventure seeking revenge against your father's killers in the only way you know how: shooting everything that moves. But little known secret, the game's title is Gun, which is too good to resist. Can you beat Gun without guns? No, obviously not. Failing that, how many bullets does it take to beat Gun? For the purposes of this challenge, a bullet is defined as the ammunition used in, guns. We'll be trying to reach the conclusion of the game's story while using only the absolute minimum number of shots. And in keeping with the spirit of the run, we'll also be avoiding use of anything else that's triggered with the fire button, such as cannons and the bow. If ever we have to use one of those, we'll keep track of them with their own separate counters. In an effort to minimize bullet use as much as possible, we're playing on easy mode. Don't judge me. Our main methods of attack are going to be melee attacks, which kill enemies in just a few swipes, whiskey bombs and dynamite, the Wild West adaptation of Molotov cocktails and grenades, and the most powerful and versatile weapon of destruction in history, horses. They can move at blazing fast speeds, do ludicrous melee damage, and are practically immortal. Cole has a finite supply of health, needing to take a swig from his flask whenever he's wounded. Horses, however, have no need for alcohol and are capable of healing their wounds automatically. Make sure to keep one of nature's trampolines in your back pocket whenever fighting outdoors. Now that the basics are out of the way, let's get this run started. As you might be able to guess, the no bullet run ends darned near instantly. The very first thing the game asks you to do is shoot 3 birds out of the air. But that's not the deal breaker just yet. Ned doesn't actually care how the birds die, so you can jump in the air and show off your ninja knife skills instead. Right after, he asks you to shoot a group of 3 under a time limit, still doable, then a group of 5. With this last group, Ned's changed the rules. Ned will only acknowledge the birds are dead if you kill all 5 in a row while in your slow-mo quick draw mode and get the 5 quick draw kill bonus. Quick draw mode is revolver exclusive. If you try to swing the knife, you automatically exit. That means right off the bat, there are 5 required bullets just to beat the quick draw tutorial. Then, after knifing some wolves, we get the rifle tutorial, requiring us to kill 2 deer. We can't jump down without getting a game over, so firing 2 more shots, 1 per elk, is the only way forward. The Steamboat ride throws us into our first gunfight, but thankfully, bringing a knife to a gunfight is a totally valid strategy on easy. During this segment, the game will beg you to man the cannon and blow the attacking keelboats away. But we don't need to go totally gung-ho. Firstly, once the Steamboat reaches a certain point, we're cutscened away to safety. We can take 2 hits before blowing up, so we only need to stop 4 out of 6 keelboats. Secondly, though the game tells us to destroy keelboats, destroying them isn't required at all. They're totally harmless if there's nobody to man the cannon. With 4 extremely well-aimed cannonballs and 4 extremely unlucky cannoneers, we can watch Ned die and wake up to meet Honest Tom. During this segment, we're once again forced into a basic shooting tutorial. We have to shoot more bottles than Tom does, and bullets are the only option. The horse can't get up to trample them, and the knife seems to have no effect. There are 11 bottles, so obviously, basic math says we need to shoot 6 bottles to move on. Unfortunately, the game could care less about your math degree. If you get a score of 6 against Honest Tom's 5, he'll declare himself the winner. We have to fire an entire extra bullet because apparently some Neversoft employee has a degree in quantum counting. Hey, wow, it's Game Champ from the future. While editing, I noticed I had some footage where I actually beat Tom with 6 shots. He gave up when there was only 1 bottle left. I have no idea what's wrong with this game, but I guess that's -1 bullets fired, and I have some lines to re-record. With the tutorial finally over, we get into the main game already having fired 13 bullets and 4 cannonballs. But thankfully, now that we're here, our options are starting to open up. Over the course of the story, we get access to shops letting us buy health and weapon upgrades. There's a finite amount of money in the game, but since we don't need to buy any gun upgrades, there's more than enough from the gunless side quests we can do to buy everything we need as soon as it's available. And in addition to cash, any side quest that involves murder will buff our melee stat. I honestly have no idea what the melee stat does, but murder is a free action, so no harm, no foul. Slide your way through the first few story segments and you'll come to another roadblock, tasking us with protecting a TNT barrel from flaming arrows. By this point, we've got some range potential with whiskey bombs, which you might think we could throw behind the blockade to take out the archers instead, but I didn't have any luck. I have a sneaking suspicion the devs cheated again, and these arrows are actually just willing themselves to exist. Knifing the arrows looks like a no-go too, but while trying, I realized we have access to something perfect for stopping all these arrows in their tracks. Your face. Go into slow-mo and participate in the world's most dangerous staring contest. The exact positioning is a little weird, but you generally want the arrows to fall near the bottom of the screen. Be careful, the arrows light you on fire, which, among other things, causes you to leak out black smoke. You'll have to keep moving to keep your view clear. With a little practice, you'll pincushion yourself enough to finish the mission and move on to the next, which is a doozy. Occasionally, the game asks us to shoot a TNT barrel, but whiskey bombs get the job done just fine. Then we go into a gunless run's worst nightmare, an on-rails shooter. But don't give up just yet, we are playing on easy mode after all. The Stagecoach has a ton of health, so we only need a couple well-aimed whiskey bombs to keep ourselves just barely burning to death enough to reach the next checkpoint. It's a really close call, but after you die at the checkpoint, the wagon's health will be totally refilled. We may be out of whiskey bombs now, but no worries, the enemies on the second half of the journey have terrible aim, letting us arrive at Empire City with no bullets fired. By some stroke of luck, that was the last roadblock for a few hours. Even when the game demands we take control of a Gatling gun and cannon, there's nothing stopping us from throwing them in the trash in favor of a combination of horses, whiskey bombs, and our new best friend, dynamite. We blaze through the entire Empire City arc and make it back to Dodge to recruit Soapy, who very rudely decided to start being murdered during the sniper tutorial, requiring us to shoot the rope from across the street. Thankfully, while this may be a sniper tutorial, all the game cares about is that the rope takes damage. Dynamite doesn't quite do the job, but we can make the shot with a single arrow. Arrow number 1 for the playthrough. There's a checkpoint after releasing Soapy, but make sure you load game back to the sniping segment if he dies before the next one. Thanks to a Neversoft programmer asleep at the keyboard, the enemies directly surrounding the gallows refuse to attack Soapy if he's just been shot down, allowing you to patiently wait for the sheriff to shoot everybody for you. From here, you'll have to carefully plan out your dynamite and whiskey bombs, taking out as many enemies as you can and letting the sheriff shoot the rest. Once he kills the opposing snipers, he'll finally move out of your way to let you jump down and start wreaking havoc of the equestrian variety. A bit after is the raid on Hollister's fort. We take a safe and carefree canoe ride inside, but after getting friendly with the residents, the game asks us to man the cannons to blow up basically everything. And I don't have any bright ideas here. The doors forward are closed and won't open unless we destroy every target. The trick with killing the gunners on the keelboats doesn't do anything either. I even tried emptying 1,000 bullets just to test the hypothesis NPCs might be able to kill the keelboats if I left the game on for a few hours, but it looks like that's not happening. Even the ammo dump is surprisingly resilient. The game just sits and waits patiently for us to do as we're told. Just to get through the fort, we have to use 4 cannonballs on the bunkers, 8 cannonballs on the keelboats, and 1 cannonball on the ammo dump. At the end of the fort is a boss fight with Hollister. Even on easy, he's surprisingly durable and can hack us to death in a second. Luckily, this fight doesn't take anywhere near as long as it potentially could have, since he just so happens to spawn below a ledge that makes him miss some of his sword swings, giving just barely enough leeway for us to trigger phase 2 of the fight melee only on our absolute final swig of whiskey. Phase 2, meanwhile, is slightly easier. After the ultimate horse duel with Reed, the fort arc is complete. We're heading into the endgame. There's only a couple more simple missions left, including a little bit of horse versus cannon platforming action. Also, I don't think the devs expected me to be using the whiskey bombs here. Just a hunch. Once that's done, you'll ride the train into Magruder's mine for the final battle. Unfortunately, I've got bad news. Almost the entire final mission is designed as a cannon-manned rail shooter. The cannon is the only thing that can unblock the path forward, and it refuses to move if certain targets are still standing. I'm hopeful it might be possible to skip the outdoor segment by clipping through this crack between the cliffside and building, but I didn't have any luck getting that to actually happen. Thankfully, we can at least get off the cannon to knife, whiskey bomb, and dynamite any enemies in our way, but otherwise, the entire cannon escort quest costs 2 cannonballs on the first gunners, 1 cannonball on the third, 2 on the entrance door, 1 on the first blockade, 1 on the minecarts, 3 on the second blockade, and 2 on the third and final blockade. That's 12 extra cannonballs right at the game's finale. The good news is, phase 1 of the final boss fight with Magruder is a simple dynamite throwing minigame. You couldn't hurt him with bullets even if you wanted to. Phase 2, the absolute final moment of the game, extremely unfortunately, is another story. If you've been keeping track, we haven't fired a single bullet since the end of the basic shooting tutorials. I feel like going bulletless from there would be an accomplishment on its own, but alas, Magruder is a jerk. Phase 2 is a mini-game in which we must get a headshot on Magruder to convince him to throw a large bundle of dynamite, which we then have to shoot before it lands. No matter how much whiskey or dynamite I threw up there, he'd just shrug them off and keep using his standard attacks. And for some reason, arrows just don't seem to work. I feel like there's no reason they shouldn't work, but they always just sort of flop down instead of hurting him. Unfortunately, it's a minimum of 4 shots to get him to throw the 4 bundles of dynamite. But no more than that. Normally, we'd need 4 more bullets to shoot the dynamite out of the air, except for one small, incredibly helpful detail. I have no idea how duct taped together this game must be on the back end, but for whatever reason, if Magruder throws his dynamite at the wall to your left, the game thinks you shot it. This means, thanks to Neversoft, we only need the 4 shots to make Magruder mad, then we can sit back and let him do the exploding for us. With Magruder crushed under the weight of his lifelong dream, the final total for the gun minimum gun run is 17. 17 was always the number I said. Bullets, 29 cannonballs, and 1 arrow. Of course, if any fans of this game are interested, let me know if you find any way the totals might be shaved down further. And finally, special thanks to all Patreon backers, including Andrew Seibert, Mrs. Seckman, Quotes Terrible, Bedside Manor, Leslam, RB Drox, All in Zero, Mr. Harry Wonka, Alexander Botkin, Chris Nate, Anu, Ikrira, Jez, Robert B. Brashier, Zaina Bain, PCR Main Sound, Joshua Bradbury, Vincent Hall, The Bass Singer, Vincent YT, Yellow Alert, Game Guy Rusty, Anon42, Suit, I'm Justin, Alex Nelson, Pepsi Man EXE, The Quacky Gamer, Chocolate Boy 97, Bainbridge, Kazoy, Maxwell Hermans, Melmos, Luminescent Dragon, Jace Nilges, Baxoid, Liddy Kitty, Sentient Bowtie, Z-Master, Leo 60228, Shoebox, Mr. Stick, Chase Harsh, Binky Doot, Endless Shapey, Soren Petrican, Daniel, Smartboy201, JP, Patrick Dow, Perth Fishing TV, Praetor, Joshua Urea Bassinger, Zavvy G, and Isaac. Let me know how much this video sucks and how I can improve in the comments below. This house ain't big enough for the both of us. Draw.